Hello, I think I'm recording. Welcome to the outline of Chapter 1 and 2 of PLC Plus, Better Decisions and Greater Impact by Design. So I will be covering Chapter 1, and my partner Ricky Crane will be covering Chapter 2. So here we go. So table of contents, Chapter 1, Chapter 2. So Chapter 1 deals with the question, what is a PLC, Professional Learning Community? So first of all, we need to define what a PLC is, but the book starts with defining what it's not. So the PLC, or a PLC rather, is not a book club. So it's not simply a place for educators to get together, be assigned reading material, and regularly meet and discuss that material and then go about their ways. That is not what a PLC is. PLC is not just a shared planning period. So it is not a time for teachers to sit together and plan lessons kind of just beside each other, but planning on their own or even collaboratively planning. It's not just that. That can be an aspect of it. It is certainly not intended to be a meeting that happens once a week and then that is forgotten about the other 6 days of the week. And it is not just attending workshops and conferences with a group of other people from your school. So if that's not what a PLC is, then what is a PLC? Well, an effective PLC works to improve pedagogical and content knowledge. So there's a group of educators that come together and they find, you know, what is our current teaching strategies? What would be more beneficial in the future? Where can we build our content knowledge? Kind of building that expertise collaboratively. A PLC is intentional about improving student learning. And it does so by having a defined goal and measurable actions. It's extremely important. That's why I've got it in bold here. We need to have a defined goal. We need to know exactly what we're trying to hit, and we need to take steps that are measurable so we know if we're getting closer to our goal or not. So, defined goal, measurable actions is extremely important for an effective PLC. So, how do we create an effective PLC? What does that look like? Well, to be effective in any endeavor, it is crucial that we operate, again, with a clearly defined objective. But how do we know what objective we should be working towards? Well, the book gives us a couple questions to kind of consider as we define our objective, four of them. So the first is, what is it that we want our students to learn? What exactly are we trying to get across here? What is our main objective as educators? What do we want them to learn? Two, how will we know if each student has learned? So this is data we'll talk about in just 2 seconds. But regularly collecting and analyzing data is crucial. How else will we know if our students have learned anything? So how will we know if our student has learned? How will we respond when students don't learn? So when we get that data and it says, you know what, 30%, 40%, 50% of our students have not met their learning targets. What do we do now? So it's not enough just to collect the data and say, well, we've got all these students that aren't really meeting the targets, they're falling behind. That's not quite enough. What are we going to do about it? What are the actions we can take? And then finally, for the students who are reaching those learning targets, how can we enrich their learning? How can we give them a little bit more of a challenge? How can we continue to serve those students and meet their needs? So again, these questions require regularly collecting and analyzing data to fully understand. Therefore, an effective PLC is constantly collecting data and making decisions based off this measurable information. So once again, a definable goal. We are analyzing and collecting data and then taking action on that data. So again, it's still not enough just to have a goal that we have clearly defined. It's not enough just to collect data and to analyze it and talk about it. But what actions are we going to take? Step number three is crucial. So priorities. What exactly should we prioritize in a PLC? What should be our kind of main talking points? What do we want to change in our school? What is the change we want to create? So our book gives us a couple of priorities we should consider when we're working in a PLC or we're putting PLC together. They are equity, so we want to create an environment that is responsive to the needs of all students. This means, if we have one veteran educator and three educators, it's their first year, they're kind of struggling. We would like, ideally, for any student to get the same outcome, the same quality of learning, the same quality of instruction, no matter which instructor they go to. And this also goes to like background questions. We have students of a variety of backgrounds, a variety of different income levels in their family. We still want to be able to give those students an equal amount of opportunity. And that looks different for every student. So how can we create equity in our schools? High expectations, the belief that all students can be successful and holding them to a high standard. So we can't just say, well, we have these group of students here, but for XYZ reason, I think the level that they've hit is good enough, and we should be happy with that. No, we need to hold all our students to high expectations. Um, just as an educator, holding our students and really pulling them up and saying, you know what, I believe you can do better. I know you can do better. Sometimes that is really meaningful students, and as an educator, should be kind of the basis that we operate on in any situation. So holding high expectations. Collaboration, believing that the combined efforts of educators creates a better environment for students. If we are creating a PLC, operating within a PLC, and we have a bunch of educators who don't feel like the combined efforts are fruitful or that they will come to any real conclusion, then it will certainly not benefit the PLC and it will not benefit the school. So coming in with that belief, with that priority that all of us working together is an effective means for change and will lead to a greater outcome for all of our students. And then activators, we need action. Again, just having a goal, just collecting data, just analyzing data is not enough. We need to take action. We need to ask questions. We need to create meaningful processes that are measurable. We need to know exactly what we're doing, why we're doing it, and if what we're doing is effective. But again, I think if we've kind of covered anything multiple times in this class so far, it's that action is the main key. That's really the only place that change happens. It's definitely not enough just to talk about things. Talking is not doing. Analyzing data is not doing. Action. What are we actually doing? So our book notes that the PLCs, or a PLC, is the sum of its parts. What does that mean? Well, we look at individual educators within the PLC. So if we are all just a group of individuals coming together, it kind of starts at that individual level. So what aspects make one an effective educator to begin with? Our text defines several positive attributes. One is trust. Educators should instill a sense of trust in their students. This means building relationships and making sure your students know you care. So it's going to be very hard for a student to learn from someone that they don't feel any kind of connection with. They don't feel like the student or the teacher cares. They just feel like the teacher's distant, just kind of showing up, going through the motions. Do your students trust you? Have you built that relationship with your class? I think that's a great baseline. Competence. Students want to know that their teachers have an appropriate level of expertise. So are you studying your content? Are you making good lesson plans? Are you going through what it takes to be a professional educator? And are you exemplifying that in the classroom? Can your students see that you are a professional educator? Dynamism. Students want teachers who are passionate and enthusiastic. Um, Not like the teacher for Ferris Bueller. Do you bring a little bit of life in the classroom, or is everyone asleep? Um, Pretty self-explanatory. It's much easier to listen to and be involved in a place that is a little more dynamic as opposed to just flat and dull all the time. And immediacy. An effective educator is able to create a sense of urgency in a lesson, is able to communicate why learning is important. So the students feel like there's any worth to what you're saying? Do they feel any connection to the content? Are you able to relate it to larger issues or how this might help them in their life? Or just in general, are you able to kind of speak on your subject and say, here's why you should be excited about this. I'm excited about it. Let's learn. So putting it all together, once a group of effective educators have gathered, they form a whole that can benefit the entire school. So some tips for new PLCs are as follows. Mastery experiences. The book defines this as Groups who have experienced success together tend to work better together and are more motivated to continue that work, which is fairly obvious. What this boils down to is when you are working in a group, especially in a new group, the book recommends that you focus on successes, especially early on, as this becomes a bit of a motivating factor later down the line, which is a fairly obvious point, I think. But celebrate successes and approach failures with a growth mindset. Recognize the good that's been accomplished along the way. Not only is this great advice for really any group, especially a group of educators, but also good advice for your students. Obviously, we want to approach everything with a growth mindset. Our fellow educators, our PLC fails in whatever objective we're trying to do, or a student fails a test, whatever it might be, kind of remind them of those successes. Well, you did better this time, or yeah, I feel like you're advancing in this level, but there's some work to do here. So kind of keeping that success in mind. So that's how they define mastery experiences. Collective learning from models. So is there another school that you can visit that is kind of the same position you are, but is maybe experiencing different results? Can we go there and have that success modeled for us, something we can learn from? Could you sit in a veteran teacher's class and learn from them? Modeling is important to our students. It should also be a priority for educators. It's always good to have a model to look toward and say, well, this is working. How can we get there? What can we learn from that? So collective learning from models is important. Social persuasion. It's a bit of an interesting note that we find in our book. Our book notes that working in a PLC requires effective communication. Opinions are valued when the person giving them is trusted and when they are found credible. So the way I kind of interpreted this is being open to speaking up as well as hearing others' ideas. PLC should be a collaborative place. So again, you have an idea, feel free to speak up, feel free to listen to others' opinions, but we need some engagement, right? It falls flat without the engagement of those who are involved in it. So some social persuasion. So I think it's a funny way to put it, but just involvement, sharing your ideas and kind of moving things forward. And then effective state, which rather obvious, I think, but the emotional tone of the organization. Teaching, of course, can be very, very stressful. But anytime you're at a PLC with other educators or really any group whatsoever, that you want some kind of positive outcome to come from, a positive attitude is critical. If you've ever been in a group of people who, whatever the goal or outcome was meant to be, everybody shows up kind of sullen and just not in it, not excited. There's no dynamism. Things tend to fall flat pretty quick, or at least whatever that goal you're trying to get towards is probably not going to go very far. As opposed to showing up, trying to have that positive attitude, having the attitude of, I'm here to collaborate, try to be excited, just kind of coming with that positive energy is definitely going to get things rolling and benefit all involved, as opposed to coming in, stressed out, I don't want to be here, this type of thing. So trying to have that effective state, the positive attitude is really very critical to an effective PLC. And that is the end of my half of this presentation. Thank you so much.